There has been a couple reports, if you like, if you can call something from the Sun a report. But Sean Dyche being linked to Leicester again. I mean, we've had the same few names linked for a while. We've had Sean Dyche, Russell Martin. I think Scott Carsey was there. There's a few others, but yeah. What do you make to Sean Dyche being linked? Right. Who shall I come to next? I'm gonna come to. No, I'm actually gonna come to Manny first. I am because, so let me bring this comment up here. Reese says there's no long-term plan with Dyche. We don't need a firefighter. We need a young manager with a long-term vision. Does that share your sentiment, Manny?
I think that's fairly sums that up pretty well. And I want to just there's a little moment, an obscure moment that I noticed in the Villa game yesterday. And who were Villa playing against? Sorry, Villa playing last night. Who did they play? Bournemouth.
Yeah.
So Bournemouth are attacking, and Villa hoof it long for Watkins to chase onto, and the defender just clears it out, and the ball goes in for a throw-in just inside the Bournemouth half. So Villa had all of their men apart from Watkins in their own half, and now it's a throw-in to them. Rather than just sort of get the right winger up the pitch and take the throw-in, they moved the entire team into almost to the edge of Bournemouth's box, and they put 4 men forward. They had their men in midfield and defence, and they decided that we need to have our players attacking the opposition as close to their box as possible. Unai Emery is a genius. He understands the value of what I call throttle ball. Make sure you've got lots of numbers forward, put high pressure on the ball, win it as high up as you can. And indeed, if you look at the Villa goal, it was when Semenyo started trying to beat 2 or 3 men. They won the ball high. Instantly, they won the ball. They crossed it first time. Watkins tapped it in. It was literally win the ball, first time cross, goal. And that is lightning fast, what I call throttle ball. Now, if you have a manager who understands the value of having numbers high up to put pressure on them, knowing that if I commit numbers in attacking, they will also have to commit numbers in defending too. So it's not as risky as you might outwardly think. And then you come back to Sean Dyche. What is Sean Dyche going to do in a similar situation? He's going to be playing rugby. We're going to be kicking it into corners, thinking that we get a line out, not a throw-in in the ball. That is not how I want to play football. That is not the way that you build long-term success. Because, my favourite argument about anti-Dyche is, I can see the merits of Dyche. He's solid, he's no nonsense, he won't take any blah, blah, blah. He'll probably get us up. He might even keep us up. But the year after that, it's a case of the same again. He might keep us up again. He might keep us up again. And every year will be might
Why
keep
not
us up
sack him
again.
after 2 seasons, though? Give him a 2-year deal.
Because that is the idea we tried with Steve Cooper, and you're assuming that the first part works well. But because as soon as you do that, you give him a 2-year deal, he's going to say, I want this player, that player, that player, that player. And he builds a Sean Dyche team. So at the end of that 2-year period, when you think, okay, he's done his job, he's kept us up twice, now we want to progress, right? This is normal. West Ham have done it with Moyes a few times. You do your job, and now we want to move on. We'll have a team full of Sean Dyche players. How do we move on? It's like having a Vestergaard and Cody again. Although he didn't even want Cody anyway, so he'd probably want to get rid of that and get Cody 2.0. It's just not anything that is exciting. And for all of those people, in the chat that might say, he took Burnley to Europe once. He did, 7th. He also took Burnley down. There's plenty of other... Brighton have been in Europe. Brentford and Brighton and Bournemouth are competing for Europe now. And they don't play anything like Sean Dyche. And the difference is, when they lose their managers, which they will do eventually, the next manager that comes in can just plug in and carry on the work that the previous manager did. That's my point with Dyche. The next manager can't continue the work with Dyche. He'll have to transform the club then. So why delay the pain? It's not a long-term identity. Decide your identity and stick to it.
Go on then, Michael. I'll let you take over because I know you're not against the idea of Sean Dyche next season.
Yeah, I might even go as far as to say that he might be the perfect man to start the Leicester City rebuild. And Neil commented on it. His championship record is fantastic. And when you look at the managers who are in the championship who have done well this season, Chris Wilder, Daniel Farke, Scott Parker, it doesn't matter really who is in charge of Leicester City next season. I think me and Manny can both agree on that, whether it's Ruud van Nistelrooy, Sean Dyche, or the unknown manager that he doesn't have a name for yet, will most probably be top 6, maybe even pushing for promotion. But yeah, the biggest upside to Sean Dyche is the stability he offers in the Premier League. And I want to have a case study for you of a manager who has this modern style of football, this attacking identity. And I'll use like Vincent Kompany as an example. He took a really good Burnley team to the Premier League, had his identity, and got absolutely found out. He actually used the Premier League as an audition for his career afterwards. And yeah, he went on to Bayern Munich, and he's done great things, or doing potentially great things. But like, it doesn't translate very well when you haven't got the players to actually to continue that. I think when you go into the Premier League for that first season, you actually need a bit of pragmatism about you. You need to sit and dig in. And I think we could do a lot worse than Sean Dyche. Manny's going to call him a dinosaur. I'm going to call him an overachiever. You know, Burnley in European football. Don't underestimate that. That is a huge achievement.
Then why did they sack him?
How many? Well, the season after wasn't particularly good, but they were.
You glossed over that. You glossed over that part, though, didn't you?
Yeah. Well,
the fact is, if he was that great a manager, Burnley would still have him as manager. They wouldn't have sacked him.
It was Burnley on a shoestring budget in European football.
They still sacked him, right?
It's very difficult to fight on those fronts, and in a way, they sort of sacrificed a position in the Premier League for a run in the European football.
And you're
West Ham have similarly done a very similar thing. I also don't underestimate what he did with Everton. This season wasn't great, but also he got some fair results. He drew against some of the big teams where we got absolutely pumped. I believe he drew against Newcastle. I believe he drew against Chelsea. He went 3-2 against Bournemouth. That doesn't sound like boring football to me off a scoreline alone.
He did no better than Frank Lampard at Everton. He did no better than Frank Lampard's done. He's done no better than a series of managers at Everton have done. You know, it's the same. You know, it's saying it's the only way to go. I just think it's insane. You know, it's absolutely insane.
Do you know how hard that gap is to bridge from the Championship to the Premier League?
But you're making a false equivalence. We are not Burnley. We are not Southampton. You know, Southampton are trying to play a very cute way of football with substandard footballs. Burnley can't afford any type of cute footballer, so they have to play what they call functional football. We are not Burnley. We are not Southampton. We're the 6th most successful team
That's not
in
true with
Premier League
Burnley,
history.
Manny. They've completely changed their approach. This is one thing, sorry, that I do have to be critical of you. I don't think you're thinking of the Sean Dyche of today. You've got stuck in your head Sean Dyche of years ago, right? He's changed his approach quite a bit. Look, I've said it before. I personally wouldn't want him, but I think you are doing him a massive disservice.
So which Dyche are you getting, the new one or the old one?
Sorry, say again.
Which Dyche is it today? Is it the new Dyche or the old Dyche then?
Sean Dyche changed his system to 4-2-3-1 and tried to play a similar style of trying to hit teams on the counter-attack, right? But one of the things he was complaining about when he was in charge at Everton is they had no fast players, which is correct. They don't have any fast players, and he was asking for them, and they didn't give it to them. So he had his own things. He took over when that club was absolutely up shit's creek, right? They had the new stadium. They had the owner that wanted out. He did keep them up at our expense, right? They did get rid of him, fair enough, but he was actually doing a good job on limited resources, right?
When he took over, they were 17th. When he left them, they were 17th.
Which is mission accomplished. They didn't get relegated.
Would you take 17th
right?
season? I absolutely would take.
If I'd never ever been relegated in the history of the Premier League, would I take 17th? No. Again, it's different. We're not Burnley. We're not Everton. We are our own unique situation.
We're not Burnley. They're going to be above us next season. That's the reality of where we are.
For the last 80, 90 years, certainly Premier League, they're below us. We have different budgets. We have different crowds. We have different appeal. You know, we can attract players to our club that Burnley couldn't even dream of. You know,
I disagree. I think as of right now, they will attract better players than we can. And they've even done that in recent seasons, like Odobert, Esteve, have you seen, is Championship Defender of the Season.
They're good recruiting. That's not a name.
Who's that winger they got from the Portuguese league as well? But
they're doing what you've suggested. They changed their transfer approach to try and bring in these dynamic players that they could sell upwards, and it has actually worked for them.
After they sacked Dyche.
let me ask
I've
this.
got
Let me ask
one more
this.
thing quickly.
Go
I
on, go
find
on.
it amazing that you value a style of football that doesn't work over actually winning games of football. That's fucking mental to me.
Explain that to me. Would you explain that to me? Because
You're
go on.
literally willing to pick a manager who's going to, I believe, most probably take us down because he plays a nice style of modern football over a man who is
did we play a nice style of modern football this season?
Teams in the Premier League.
Did we play a modern forward-thinking style of football this season?
Well, we just didn't have the players to do it.
Did we? Did we? Yes or no?
I think Ruud van Nistelrooy would say that he is trying to play
We
a modern
did.
style of football.
And what is Steve Cooper trying to do?
Wow, he's playing a completely different game to the rest of the world.
Okay, so is Steve Cooper's more your way of thinking rather than mine? He stunk the place out, mate. It was awful. Ruud has also stunk the place out. It's obviously down to the quality of players, so you have to adapt. I'm not trying to play, super nice football if my players are substandard. What I'm trying to do is build a team capable of playing that way eventually.
That's the thing, though, right? You're going to hire a manager that has those ideas. I'll use the case study again. Look at Vincent Kompany. Look at Russell Martin. They don't have the players. They keep trying to play their style of football because they see it as growing their own career. I think the manager that you bring in, I think when the last time you spoke about this, I'm in a fortunate situation. I've been able to hear your arguments throughout. I'm an avid watcher of the channel as well. You are like, oh, why don't we pick the team who finished 5th in the Portuguese league? Well, all that bloke really wants to do is the Arsenal job. He doesn't want the fucking Leicester job.
That's a fact of life when you have quality. It's like saying, I'm not going to pick a really good player because he's just going to leave us one day in the future. That's not how it works. You try and get the best people, best in class in the room. And a minute ago, or 5 minutes ago, you just mentioned Chris Wilder and what's his name from Burnley doing a great job. Scott Parker doing a great job. Vincent Kompany did a great job in the Championship. Russell Martin did a great job in the Championship.
Did a great job.
And,
I didn't say they did a great job.
And Enzo Maresca.
It doesn't matter who the manager is, we'd be up there because look at the managers who are doing it right now.
Correct. So I agree with you in that point, in that style of football doesn't necessarily matter too much in the Championship. So then we're back to the same debate as what will work in the Premier League. And I'm not... Well, it didn't work that well because he also got sacked in the end. So in the end, whether it's a case of the fans get bored of watching that rubbish football, so he's forced to try and evolve. And Anil correctly pointed out that they did try and evolve at Everton. He's probably been told the last summer, if you don't change your style of play, you're going to be gone. The fans aren't having it anymore. And they did actually sign somebody with pace because they signed Dyche for 20 odd million in the summer. And he tried to do it that way, still got sacked. But the consistent element is that he got sacked. Whereas when we did have a forward-thinking manager, he didn't get sacked. He went to Chelsea. How likely is it that Dyche is going to leave us for Chelsea? Never in a million years.